Welcome to Inside Lake Forest. I'm Eileen Luby, and today we're going to be visiting with the Lake Forester, our local community news source. Here, founded at Lake Forest College, let's step inside and find David Sweet, who's the managing director. David, hi.
Hi,
Great.
Eileen. How are you?
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for meeting with us today.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to learning about the Lake Forester and its history in here in our community. And yourself, David Sweet, as managing editor of the Lake Forester, give me the history of how this all began.
Well, it's pretty interesting, and it actually really started right here at Lake Forest College. In 1896, a college professor thought the town needed a weekly newspaper. The college already had one called the Stentor that had started in 1887, but the town itself didn't have any newspaper for residents to look at. So he started it up, and the first issue came out on Bank Lane, and we've been publishing weekly ever since. We've been owned by a number of different companies. We were owned by Time Life starting in 1969, and it's gone through a couple of other owners as well, and now we're owned by the Sun-Times Media Group.
Okay, great. And David, how did you personally become involved in this journalism, communications, media with the newspaper and then at the Lake Forester?
Well, about 20 years ago, I went to the University of Southern California and got a master's degree in journalism. And it was a great learning experience for me to find out about media law, media and society, and to find out how to really write a lead well and all those sorts of things. And then I was a sports editor in the Los Angeles area for a daily newspaper. Then I moved to New York City and worked for Dow Jones right when the Wall Street Journal Online started. In 2003, I found myself back in Lake Forest, married with a growing family, and the Lake Forester had an editor's job open. And I applied for it, and here I am today.
Here you are. So David, tell me a little bit about the difference from one media to another, from print to television, and working with the internet and seeing the changes. Do you have any thoughts on how that's really changed the industry?
There's a massive transformation right now. A lot of people watching this probably have seen it and know about it. If they've seen the Chicago Tribune in the last 6 months, they've seen a major change in that newspaper. The Lake Forester hasn't been immune to changes. The newspaper industry is in some trouble right now, that's obvious. But as I tell my class here at Lake Forest College, you take the word newspaper, the paper part of it may go away, but everyone will always want news. And I think as the future comes, comes quickly, they'll be getting their news on websites. It's already happening today. It'll happen more and more as the years go on. The younger generation, college students, and that age group, they don't really read newspapers anymore. Hopefully they read the Stentor here, but other than that, they get a lot of their news from websites. And the Lake Forester has its own website as well. We post news up there on a daily basis, on meetings and other things that are going on. And people, they enjoy going to it and getting news quickly, as opposed to waiting for the paper to come out once a week.
So David, the Lake Forester has really built its own position online as well as being a weekly published newspaper. Now tell me, it's published on Thursdays?
That's right, it comes out every Thursday, and most people get it via their mailbox since they're subscribers. I think it goes to about 2 out of every 3 households in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. Some other people can get it at their local stores though. I believe the Village Market in Lake Bluff and Walgreens and CVS in Lake Forest always carry the Lake Forester.
Great, so it's definitely an outlet for people to pick up if they're not current subscribers right now.
Exactly.
Well, David, also, let's talk about the local news that you cover these days and talk about some of our highlights that you found over the years working with the Lake Forester.
Well, I've really enjoyed doing features and profiles of residents, and I think my favorite series was the Memories of the Mayor series that we put together a couple of years back. There were at that time 12 former living mayors, and nearly all of them had grown up in the community, spent their life in the community, had given big contributions to the community. So we did lengthy Q&As with all of them, and we also took photos of them as well and ran this year-long series, one a month, since there were 12 of them. And I think that was very well received. It was interesting from a historical perspective of the town, and I think that worked quite well. I've also tried to put together something I called Catching Up With, and that looks at residents who have made their mark on the world, who grew up in Lake Forest or Lake Bluff. Some of the names that come to mind are Melinda Beck, she's a columnist at the Wall Street Journal now. She graduated from Lake Forest High School. Her mother was also a well-known columnist, Joan Beck, at the Chicago Tribune.
Okay.
Ed Swift, a writer for Sports Illustrated, grew up here, went to Lake Forest Country Day School, and there have been a handful of others. And I think people really enjoy reading about people, and I think that's been a good thing that's happened.
You're the only local weekly newspaper in our community, Lake Forest, Lake Bluff area.
That's right. I mean, if you're looking for local news about schools, or if you want to find out what event is coming up in town, I mean, we always have that kind of information, along with news about what's going on at the city council meetings. As I said before, profiles of residents.
And of course, you know, you also have news like in the blotter, which I think sometimes, you know, jokingly people do open up to that section to see who's listed. So as you mentioned, people do like to read about people in all
that's
aspects.
True. Well, yeah, everyone knows the blotter is probably the most popular part of the paper. Property transfers are also well read, as are obituaries.
Absolutely.
Those are probably the three ones that people always talk about and go to right away, as you said.
As well as I think the events are great in the schools and what's new, what's happening in town.
Right.
But is there anything, David, that you recall from your work here in terms of local news that's made national coverage?
Well, I know before I was here, and you'll remember this as well, back in the late 80s when Mr. T cut down quite a few trees at his estate on Green Bay Road.
Yes.
That made national news. I'd say since I've been the editor, George Clooney was in town taping a movie, and that probably got some national recognition. And we put him on the cover of the Lake Forester. That was a lot of fun. I know there have been stories about the Lake Forest College handball coach. He's been written about in the New York Times because he's won so many handball championships. And Lake Forest College had an article in the Wall Street Journal last year about all the Lake Foresters who give money to Lake Forest College, even though they didn't go here. And I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but the noon siren is just going off right now. We did a story on that a couple of years ago, how that tradition started, and it sort of went away for a while, and then it was restarted. And that's sort of a perfect Lake Forester piece, because everyone knows what the noon siren is, and they're all wondering
the history behind it.
The history behind it. And for some of those who work at City Hall and so forth, it's a pretty loud noise. Why do they have to hear it every day? So we were able to cover that. That obviously didn't make national news, but a lot of, every so often Lake Forest stories do get national coverage.
Tell me about some of the inside scoop about the Lake Forester in terms of the paper.
The presses are in Northfield.
Okay.
And I've been working out of an office in Waukegan.
Okay.
So the paper is sort of put together in a lot of different areas. We have a reporter, Linda Blazer, who covers Lake Forest, and she's in the community quite a bit, talking with people and getting the news. But we don't have an office in Lake Forest or Lake Bluff.
So in addition to Linda's efforts here in town, are local residents or non-for-profit organizations or other groups able to get you press releases or photos or information about things they have coming up?
Yeah, we always welcome that. Press releases, we always hope they're concisely written, get to the point, so we can just sort of cut them out of the email and sort of edit them a little bit and put them right in the paper. And we certainly welcome photos of charity events or from schools.
Sports teams.
Any of that. We're happy to print them. Sometimes if we don't have space in the paper, we can always put them online. On occasion online, we'll have photo galleries of an event.
Great.
People seem to enjoy going through 30, 35 photos of an event in town.
Can they go in and actually order a picture from you online that may have been taken at an event?
That's a good question. They can. There's a photo store at pioneerlocal.com, and that has nearly all the photos photographers have taken at all the events in Pioneerland. And people are welcome to scan the photos and pick the ones they want and order them.
Great. Wow, that's a real opportunity. I don't think people realize that they can go and purchase those photos for themselves.
I think you're right. We welcome ads all the time. If they want, they can contact me at dsweet@pioneerlocal.com, and I can put them in touch with the proper ad representative for advertisements in the paper or online.
Great. And people who are submitting press releases or photos can also contact you or find other information on your website at www.pioneerlocal.com/.
Lake Forest. Exactly. It's a long one.
Thank you, David.
Thank
well,
you,
David,
Eileen.
It's really been a pleasure
It has
talking with
been.
you, learning the history of the Lake Forester and how it began here, and your involvement and your history in this community as a resident as well.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.